Yes, it is. Welcome, guys. Good to see you. LeBron, David, Andy, Mr. Ott. Everybody looks good. Uh, I, one of the things I think there's been quite a few requests for everything, shirts and hats. DC, is there anything that you need to say to the group about that?
I've been posting. I posted the prices after talking to Linda. What I'm going to do is I'm going to post her contact information. She gave me permission, so members can order directly from her. Okay, I posted the one email that she sent me that lists the colors she has available, sizes. She can do hats, she can do t-shirts, she can do polo shirts. Some shirts are only available with a pocket in certain colors type thing, so and sizes. So all that will be, members can contact her directly.
Oh, good, good, good. All right. So I have a brief presentation from the last op session, of which three folks here were
Oops.
at the house. I mean, oops, what was the oops about?
Somebody was supposed to send somebody some photos, and somebody
I
forgot.
wonder who. Anybody here, maybe?
Yeah, I think somebody might be online right now.
Okay, great. Well, they don't have to bother about sending them now, that's for sure.
Hey, Thom, I like your background.
I thought you might be interested. I thought I'd put this up just in case you showed up. That's so would you give us just a brief snippet about what's happening with your layout, LeBron?
My new table is finished. We're waiting for CAD drawings on the final track plan.
So the table's built and now they're starting to lay track?
Yeah, well, as soon as I get my final approval.
Okay, got it.
We've got a rough sketch of what it's going to be, but we're waiting for some CAD drawings to be approved
Got it.
for this late track.
That's
Are
great.
you going to be doing stub turnouts, LeBron?
No, I'm just going with points. I'm going with points, DC.
Yeah.
My physical condition is limiting what I can do these days.
Thank God for point stubs. I mean point switches.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what I bet. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. All right. Let me get this started. I think this is the one. Okay, so this was from October 28th. And let's see, I'm gonna get this thing out of the way. Hide. There we go. Cool. So just a little brief overview of what's going on. For the most part, I'm going to be referring to Chattanooga when we did our ops, which will include this staging area, some activity around at Chattanooga, and some things that we did from Big Shanty. And we had three crews here and a yard master. And Chattanooga was quite the epicenter for all kinds of things going on. So I'm calling this the I'm thinking about including this element in Zoom videos where somebody can bring something that is kind of odd and we get to like diagnose the condition. Or maybe this will be the only one we do. I don't know. So when thinking about doing scheduling, I'm always looking at the context, like what's happening at the summer of 1863. And for the most part, as many of you know, Rosecrans and his folks were approaching the border of Tennessee and Georgia. And Bragg was consolidating his troops around Chattanooga. So that's going to open up some possibilities for troop movements, passengers, and what have you. So the possibilities that I considered this time were troops and material to Chattanooga, which would have included house, passenger platform, and flat cars. There'd be refugees coming out of Chattanooga, probably some wounded to hospitals to the south, which would have required passenger, cattle, horse, and freight. And then the coal and iron ore out of Chattanooga heading south, and platform and house cars. And then this would include these three interchanges. And just to go back here, we have uh, from this staging, this is the source or the approach from either the Memphis and Charleston or North Carolina. That was the idea behind this. The only thing I want you to try to pay attention to, because this can be pretty complicated, is all this scribbling up here. So when I start out, there's usually an engine assigned, all right, and the yardmaster has the Alabama as its yard engine. So you can see that something happened to the Georgia, and that was replaced by the New York, and then something happened to it, and that was replaced by the New Jersey, and then we finally ended up using the Alabama because all three of these things had something go wrong. Just, I mean, whether it was in Chattanooga or just outside of Chattanooga. So you can see Jimmy wrote here a late start because it was supposed to start at 1:15, but it probably started maybe 20 minutes after that. And then the train that he put together, which was the coal cars, some cars from the East Tennessee and Georgia, and an Adams Express. And then here you can see receiver, stop, or drop. The East Tennessee and Georgia cars are going to be dropped off at the East Tennessee and Georgia spur. And then as it moved along its route to Atlanta, it had these cars to pick up and these stops to make along the way. This was another train that was to be coming out of Chattanooga, headed up by the Catoosa. Fortunately, that pretty much worked, and you could see Dan Free and Andy were heading that one up. And they actually picked up, there was a train ready for them. This was empty cattle cars. And excuse me. And then when they get to Dalton, which is the main cattle pen area, those empties were to be dropped there. So they actually came from the Macon and Western or the Nashville and Chattanooga line. So they came in from the staging area. So this is just a shot of the staging area behind Lookout Mountain. And just as a reference, sorry to do this. Whoop. But that would be right back here, as I mentioned earlier. So this is all of Lookout Mountain along the backdrop. All right, so this is going to be something to watch, and this is the first diagnostic here.
Looks like the quartering is not working.
Right, so I'm going to stop the share for a second. So what do you think might be going on there? Any guesses? Really? Yeah, well, yeah, not you. You know.
My assumption is that
You want to
uh,
see the
I'm
video
gonna have
again?
to, yeah, I would have to say I have to see the video again. But it almost to me it looks like it's missing the side rod on the opposite side.
Trying to move this thing out of the way here.
I was loose on the axle.
Yeah, I would have to. I mean, I'm leaning towards there's something wrong with the quartering, or the somehow the rear axle somehow separates, so it's no longer keeping. It's not able to keep the quartering proper.
Okay. Any other guesses?
Driver's slipping on axle.
What's that?
Driver is slipping on its axle. Rear driver.
Okay. So here's what it actually was. I don't have the picture of it because I put it back together too quick. But if you were to look on the other side of the locomotive, what actually happened was the screw that holds these two rods in place came out. So this rod was dangling and this rod was dangling, and it had nothing to keep it in sync. So fortunately, it was not a quartering issue. That I don't want to have to like deal with pulling the wheels off and doing that. So that was a pretty easy fix. I appreciated that. So that's number one. So this will just give you an idea of what the guts looks like without the decoder or the keep alive or the speaker. I'm sorry, this is the keep alive without the decoder or the speaker. Um, and when Jim was trying the second locomotive, this drive shaft was turning, but the locomotive wasn't moving. Got that? So the drive shaft was turning, but the locomotive wasn't moving. Any thoughts on what could have caused that?
Ball on the drive shaft.
What's that, John?
The ball on the drive shaft came loose over.
Exactly. Yes. This piano wire is glued into the ball. Here you see the pin on one end, and that came loose. So this was turning, but this wasn't because the adhesion broke free. So that was the second one. Again, the good news was an easy fix. The third one you won't guess because this is just, I mean, you wouldn't even think of it. But I I inserted the ball, and this is now we're talking about another locomotive now. I inserted the ball in the pocket as it's supposed to be. It started to run, and then it stopped. I mean, the locomotive stopped moving, and then the drive shaft was down, but the ball was attached. So you got that? So it looks like this. The locomotive is running, and then when I look back in there, the piano wire drive shaft and the ball were dangling. You want to take a wild guess at what happened there? Anybody?
Yeah, I'll take a guess. The
What's
socket
that?
on the worm shaft in the locomotive walked forward on the worm shaft. And
No, that
no?
was not it. But I thought that was it too, John, but that wasn't it.
Okay.
Good guess though. So, um, phew. So all my motors are siliconed to its base. And believe it or not, the silicone gave way and the motor just got pushed back, which separated the pocket from the ball. And this was amazing. All three of these things happened within about 15 minutes of each other. It was unbelievable how three locomotives could go sideways in such a short amount of time. But again, the good news was they were all easy fixes.
It wasn't the engineer's fault.
No, not at all. Not at
You all
all.
heard Tom say it wasn't my fault, right?
Now, doesn't that always happen in an ops session? Nothing goes wrong except when you're having an ops session.
Thank you, John, because I ran all three of these locomotives within the week before, and they all ran fine. And all three of them punked out within 15 minutes each other. I couldn't believe it. It was kind of hysterical. But anyhow, let's see. Let's go to the next one.
Yeah. Now, quick question, would that be considered prototypical?
Well, I mean, 3 locomotives? I doubt it. I,
John's shaking his head, yes.
oh, really? Wow. Okay. Then everybody got to experience a real live event. So it doesn't get more prototypical than that, with the breakdowns, I guess.
But we ended up only 10 minutes behind schedule.
Yeah, because I really spaced the time out quite a bit for this one, um, figuring there's going to be something that happens. So although we lost 15 minutes on the front end or even more, everybody was able to pretty much stay on schedule, I believe. Okay. What is this? Oh, this is just this is the coal train that would have been coming out of Chattanooga. This is heading to the Atlanta mill. These are BTS cars, and the coal loads were built by DC. Yeah, and this is already staged in Chattanooga. One of the things I picked up along the way is that an engineer and a conductor would not have to make up the train in the yard. That would already be done. So what they essentially have to do is make sure they got their cars, their way bills, and then move out. So I preset the trains for the most part, except for the work that the yard master has to do. And this is Bill and Dan working together. They're referring to the turnouts. I have numbers on the fascia. I cut it off there because I think there was something going on. Oops, let's see. Oh, yeah, so that's pretty much it. And I just wanted to highlight Andy's YouTube site. He's done 2 videos here. And the last one, if you go to that link and pull up 8-wheelers in 1863, it's the recent op session. And he gets amazing a number of hits. The first one he did, he got over 3,000 views. And this one's up to close to like 900 already. So he's got a couple of great videos on there. So I just wanted to point that out to you guys. I guess I could post this. But if you go to Andy, what is it? It's
Um, Estep Andy Projects.
Estep Andy Projects, right? Cool. Yeah, the narration is great, and he just has a nice way of working his camera to highlight different either aspects of the operation or the views that the train is going through. I really like it a lot. Oh yeah, Uncle Nearest was here. So Uncle Nearest, it's either the stress reliever or it's the operator motivator. Either way, you guys can't go wrong. If you want to do a prototypical op session, have some Uncle Ernest nearby. Just be cautious if you invite DC to the session, and you're good to go. Yeah. So let's see. Exit. There we go. Good. That's what we did. That's what we did. It was a fun time. And yeah, the locomotives. That's right now. I've been playing a lot with the sound effects, working the equalizer, the reverb, and what have you. And it's just a lot of fun getting different tones and sounds out of these, where you can really create the locomotive's profile, so to speak, using really specific sounds and adjustments on the decoder. It's a lot of fun. And George Bogatuk, every time I send him a text, he responds probably within 10 minutes. He's remarkable. So from a service standpoint, you can't go wrong with those guys. So that's it for me. Anybody else have anything? Any questions? Anything you want to share? Anything going on? I was going to
Well,
ask.
if you're in Houston, not this weekend, but the next weekend, we will have our display up at the NMRA Model Railroad Month Open House. We'll be over in Pearland. The advertisements in it's in Model Railroader and several other things, and the
Yes.
NMRA magazine.
Is this the national convention?
No, this is it's the Houston. This is National Model Railroad Month, NMRA National Model Railroad Month.
That's right.
And so we all the clubs have open houses, and ours will be over at Pearland at the Knights of Columbus Hall.
Nice. Cool.
So we'll be set up over there because that's the in scale. It's all scales will be there actually. Okay.
Great. You'll get some cool photos for us too, right?
Yep.
Excellent. Thank you, Joel.
Okay.
Thank you.
And Roger said he might even show up one day.
Yeah, I'm going to try to appear Saturday if I can.
Excellent.
Glad to have somebody. Then I can go to the potty.
Oh, geez. Okay. Yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
I do have a question. I have not a crossover, but I have a crossing. And is there a good place to go to get information on how to properly wire it?
You mean like an X, like a crossing?
Yeah, crossing. I've used the I used the template from Fast Tracks to build it, but I haven't wired it yet. And
I wonder if you
wasn't
gotta
sure
use-
the best place to go to get information on how to do that. Any suggestions?
I assume you gave YouTube a try.
Yeah, you get all sorts of things for crossovers, are putting signals on crossings but not the simple thing about how do you wire it. So,
I wonder if you would need a reverser in there. No.
well, that's what I was wondering, but I don't know.
John's shaking his head. No, you don't need a reverser.
No, and in my How to Wire a Model Railroad book, Mallory's book.
Oh.
Mallory's book.
Now you said this was Fast Tracks?
Yes, I
Fast
built
Track,
it using a Fast Tracks jig. Or not
Yeah,
a jig,
and-
but
and
their plan.
Yeah, and you have electrical interruptions, and that tells you where to cut the track to put your little piece of plastic in to
Yeah,
insulate all of that.
I've got all that done.
Yeah, okay,
It's installed except for running the wires to it, and I haven't approached that yet.
okay.
Now does
It's
Fast
just a simple crossing.
Yes,
Okay, I've built a couple
yes.
by scratch, and the only thing I ever did is run jumpers from
Yeah.
one outside rail to the middle rail to the other outside rail, and made sure that the rails were cut and little plastic spacers were put where the two rails come together on the outsides of the crossing, so that
Okay.
there's never any contact from one direction to the other direction.
Okay, so I don't need anything like
No
a switch
switches,
on it.
no,
Okay,
no, nothing. It's just, you're just putting, basically it's just putting gaps in the rails and putting jumpers.
Okay. okay. Thank you, guys. I knew there
Yeah.
was a lot of expertise here.
Yeah, I would also assume that it would be in the fast tracks instructions because they're usually pretty good on, covering all the bases.
I did not see anything for that, but there might be something there.
But
It wasn't a priority at the time I built it, but now that I'm actually powering the rails, I wanted to make sure.
Yep.
Did I take it? Huh. It's something I started doing. I don't have enough photos. I have for the ops session at each station or wherever there's cars to pick up or material to be dropped off. I just have, you might recall, for those of you that have seen me in another Zoom, two boxes. One is for pickup, one is for drop off for the waybills. And I thought, waybills, how were they actually handled back then? We might have even had this conversation. And my assumption is that the conductor would have some kind of satchel pouch where the waybills he would have just kept and handed them off when they came to a different station or picked them up. So I was thinking about, wow, how can I make something kind of like a leather thing? So all I did was, I don't know if you can see these, just these little boxes. And then I just covered them. Let me get that. Change this background. I'm going to change the background so it's just nothing. Good.
Yeah.
Naked. So all I did was add from Joann's Fabrics vinyl. So you have like a simulated leather pouch where these can go in. I'm doing brown and tan. Brown is out, tan is in. And so that's one of the newest things I've been working on the layout to spiff it up a bit. They've been just these white foam core boxes with drop off and pick up in pen, but these will be pretty cool. Yeah, that's been, man, I got to make 16 of these things. Jesus. And every one of them is a little bit different. Oh, it's like, so I've got 3 different sizes. Now what I'm doing is I'm matching up. Okay, wait a minute, that's too big. I got to make one smaller. Or because if you look at these two, they're not exactly the same height. But it's been fun, and there'll be a nice addition to the layout. Oh, Spira Models dropped off their stuff. Finally, they got it right after 2 deliveries of oversized pieces. I picked up some like 10 caissons and about 8 wagons. And I got our friend Marty Vaughn doing the painting on those. And I got them from Spira because I wanted something lightweight to put on the cars as loads. Since the cars are already weighted, I didn't want to put the Musket miniatures on there and have it be more of a drag on the loco. So those will be some significant trains. I did have a couple of shots of the artillery, but I don't know what I did with those. Anyhow, so Spear has been fantastic to work with. They didn't charge me anything for the prior to, and they've been donations to Roger's layout since they're more like 1/72. Yeah. Also, I got this small motor that I'm going to try to use from this guy out in Sweden. And I'm going to do a test on that. And if that works, I'll be sharing that information with you guys because this is about half the size of those Maxon motors. So you'd have a whole lot of room to put, a decent sized speaker plus the current keeper. But yeah, stay tuned for that one. That's on a back burner project right now. Right now, it's going through the 7 locomotives or 8 locomotives I've got now and running them and seeing, I'm tightening up the screws. I'm lubricating everything. Yeah, I'm not taking anything for granted. After that, I was gobsmacked with that. That was too funny.
Oh, they'll break anyway. They get stage fright.
I actually feel good that you said that, John. So then if it does happen, I'll just remember what you said. It's like, see that? You got to manage your expectations, man. I got to manage them. John, if it's possible, it will happen. So I'm just glad everybody has a good time. And for the most part, the trains ran reasonably well after we got through all of that nonsense.
You never have enough locomotives until you got one for every foot of track.
Whoa. I'm going to need another lifetime. I'm short about 120.
Yeah, that's my rule of thumb, but it's not for everybody.
Okay, so wow. All right. How many feet of track do you have, John?
Oh God, that's a good question. I really don't know.
How about your main line? What's your main line?
Oh, maybe 30 feet. Not very big at all. I've just got a small U-shaped layout. It's right behind the screen, right here.
Oh, cool. You ever ops at your place?
Not really much. Not this layout. I didn't design it for ops. I just wanted someplace I could run the trains when I finish them.
Oh, cool. Be great to see a video of do you have any videos out there?
Nope, I don't. But that's on the list.
Oh, good.
That's on the list of things to do.
Excellent.
John, thank you for your posting today on the Lady Davis. I liked it.
Oh, you're very welcome. Yeah, I'm glad. Just stuff appeared on other Facebook pages. I thought it might be appropriate for the Civil War page.
Absolutely. You saw Al Mueller's Lady Davis? It was like a lavender color, but I'm not sure if that was accurate. No.
I like John's paint scheme.
Right.
The real Lady Davis was unique in that it was the first American locomotive to be painted all black.
Whoa.
Then it was considered a very avant-garde way of doing it at the time.
When was that built, John?
In the late 1850s.
Now the boiler wasn't painted black. It would look like it was Russian metal.
Right. Yeah, you don't paint boilers. You don't paint smoke boxes. That's general
Right.
rule of thumb. As long as we're talking about locomotives, does anybody want to see some Civil War era locomotives drawn by somebody that was an eyewitness to them?
Yes, but before I have one quick question. The Lady Davis was named after
Jeff Davis's wife.
Oh, it was. Oh, God.
It was stolen from the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad, brought south, and was renamed and kind of made into an official Confederate locomotive. But this is all rumor and myth that never was documented.
Oh, okay. But there was a Lady Davis locomotive, right?
Yeah, the locomotive itself was real.
Okay. But whether it came from the B&O and all that is question.
It did come from the B&O. It was B&O number 188. It was stolen when Jackson raided Martinsburg in 1861.
Right.
Brought south and ran on several railroads in Virginia and North Carolina.
Cool.
Stayed a Confederate locomotive for the rest of the war.
Good. Thank you. Let's see some locomotives.
Okay. get some, share some screen. Hang on just a sec.
Sure.
All right. Everybody see a locomotive here?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, this set of drawings was drawn by a guy named Charles Caruthers. And he lived in from I don't know, he was born in the 1840s, lived until the 1920s. He was a school kid during the Civil War. And he grew up alongside the Pennsylvania Railroad, where his father was an official, and he was just in love with locomotives. So he drew them and painted them while he was waiting for the train, because he rode the train every day to go to school. He went to school in the big city, which was several miles away from his home. And he drew hundreds of these illustrations. And then when he grew up, he became a very fine draftsman, and he took his old material and turned it into the drawings you're going to be seeing here.
Wow.
Wow.
These were all done in the 1860s. These all would all be contemporary locomotives with Civil War time. They're all Pennsylvania Railroad locomotives, but you know, as you guys might know, the Pennsylvania Railroad was kind of the standard railroad, and everybody copied what they did. So I consider these, you know, if you saw it on the Pennsylvania Railroad, you probably saw it on Southern railroads, Northern railroads, all over the place.
John, a quick question. Did he pen and ink these? I mean, how is this like rulers and?
Yes, these are actually drawn. I think they're drawn with pencil and watercolor.
Oh, wow.
And I thought his color stuff, I knew about it because I wrote an article on the guy for Railroad History magazine a couple of years ago. But I thought all his color stuff was lost. But last year, a collector on the East Coast, he wants to remain private, so I can't tell any more about him. But he came across a collection of Caruthers drawings, and he sent me these several samples that I'm going to be showing you.
Wow.
So at least we know that some of his color stuff survived. This first one is a Norris locomotive from the middle 1850s. The unique thing about this and a lot of the other locomotives I'm going to be showing you is that they all have kind of a uniform color scheme. They don't have an awful lot of colors, like I kind of used to think that most locomotives from that era had. Apparently, when the Pennsylvania Railroad got a hold of them anyway, they would swap them out for monocolor color schemes. This was an interesting locomotive. Pittsburgh was built by Smith and Perkins. They were a locomotive builder in Alexandria, Virginia. And they built a lot of Southern locomotives.
That's the second locomotive I've seen out of Smith and Perkins. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a 260.
Yeah, it's a Pioneer 260. This was before they put a flexible or swiveling pilot on the 260s. These were the pilot wheels were actually part of the frame of the locomotive.
It looks like the first two drivers are blind drivers.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Only the lead axle and the last driver axle have flanges on them.
Nice.
I believe that Smith and Perkins built a number of locomotives for the B&O.
Yep.
And those tender trucks, I think, are even sometimes called Perkins tender trucks. You see them on a lot of B&O locomotives.
Right.
They look like the ones on the the camel engine down at the B&O Museum.
Yeah,
These-
well,
these-
there's a very good reason for that. Because the Perkins in Smith and Perkins was Thatcher Perkins, who was for many, many years the master mechanic of the Baltimore, Ohio.
Hmm.
So he just packed up all his drawings and all his knowledge and brought it along with him. So yeah, a lot of these locomotives from Smith and Perkins have a lot of B&O in their heritage.
Yeah, some source that I was reading about these calls these locomotives pseudo moguls.
Yep.
You've got the wheel arrangement, but yet it's not the same thing.
Right, right. Yeah, they were proto moguls. Here's another one. This is a Baldwin engine. You're getting a little bit more colorful when you get to the Baldwins. This was a Baldwin from early 1850s. But yeah, I like the color scheme on it.
It's gorgeous.
There's a nice mural on the headlight.
Yeah, look at that scroll work. They put significant effort into making these things look attractive.
Now the tender looks like it has only one bogie on it, and
Yep.
the other two are attached to the frame
Right, right.
with one
That
set of.
again was a feature of the 1850s. They tried to minimize the use of bogies as best they could, and I don't know what behind that was. But you see the same sort of thing. A lot of these drawings. Oh yeah, here's a Baldwin flex beam engine. The lead drivers here are on a swivel truck.
Wow.
And the rods have ball joints. And this was Matthias Baldwin, being a not terribly successful inventor. He tried to make it so that all the wheels on the locomotive were powered. And, I guess he was successful because he built over 200 of these things for various railroads from the 1840s through the 1850s. But I think the last one was built around Civil War era. Most railroads, like the Pennsylvania, eventually rebuilt them. Like you see these two little drawings down here, and put all the driving wheels on rigid frames.
Wow. That's such a complex.
The best thing to do. Yeah, these were too complex. If you see one feature that's in common for all these locomotives is that they tried their best to make them as needing as little maintenance as possible to keep them running. Tom,
Right.
you can relate to that.
Yeah, painfully so, yes.
I really like the color scheme here with the red and the blue.
Yeah. Wow.
The different shades of green are very interesting.
Yeah, dark forest green, light green. They had some very interesting attitudes toward color back then. Not at all sober Victorian like most people think about things from Victorian times.
Would you say Baldwin was the most colorful of the manufacturers, or not necessarily?
Not necessarily in this particular set. They are. You'll see some more Baldwins in a little while. But the thing to remember about all these engines here is that they were drawn in the 1860s, so they've been on the road for like 10, 15 years. They've all been repainted.
Right.
All these color schemes are from the Pennsylvania Railroad. They're not the original color schemes that the engines came with.
Got it.
Here you got another pseudo mogul in light green.
Yep.
again with dark green for emphasis, or
John, what are the size of the drivers on those?
let's see. It should say here down in the text.
Yeah,
Yeah,
44.
inches.
44 inch.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No, that's.
What
not
did they
bad.
say?
44 inches.
Yeah,
44. Okay. So pretty small.
Pretty small. These guys are obviously meant to pull freight over the Alleghenies to Pittsburgh.
Hmm.
What's on a prior video, someone, I think it was Dave Schneider, mentioned the that cannon looking stack that's that steam
Right.
is what's that called?
Yeah, that's a Canon safety valve.
Cannon safety valve. Okay.
You see here the arm here, and
Yep.
then this is the spring balance down here on the left-hand side of the thing.
Yep.
You can adjust the spring balance, so you could kind of adjust the pressure where the safety valve would go off.
Hmm.
That's one reason why engines always had two safety valves generally. I don't know where the second safety valve is on this locomotive. It might not have had one, but most engines have two safety valves just in case somebody screwed with one too much.
Right. That's an interesting pilot on there, that like scoop kind of thing.
Yeah, bar pilot. They
What
had a lot
kind
of bar pilots in the 1850s. I don't think they really, well, cow catchers were kind of new back then. They didn't really have a decent idea of what they wanted down there. So they had a lot of these bar pilots that probably didn't survive their first encounter with a cow.
Right.
like bumpers today.
Yeah, kind of.
Now, what kind of valve gear does it did it have? It shows it was showing a
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah, I should have pointed that out. No, sorry, I might be able to get it back later on. But yeah, it had a weird kind of valve gear that was unique to Smith and Perkins, where it was kind of like a V-hook valve gear, but it had different hooks for every setting of the valve gear.
Those drivers are 78 inches. My goodness.
Yeah, this one, yeah, this is a beautiful locomotive. It was built by Will Marth in Boston. It's one of the sites of well, I used to get off the subway in Boston, in South Boston.
Yep.
Walk across the Fort Point Channel, get to work, and I walked right by the site of this guy's iron foundry every day. I thought about him often, but he built some beautiful locomotives, and this is the first indication I got that any of his locomotives were painted this bright red.
And it's interesting, after the name, he's got a little period.
Yep.
Huh.
That was standard for back then. Any name, any of the brass plates. If you look on signs too, if you look on advertising signs, everything's got a period after it.
Hmm.
They just went period crazy during the middle 1800s. That lasted until the end of the century. So yeah, whenever I draw locomotives and put on the names and so forth, I got to remember to always add the period, because there always was a period added.
A passenger engine.
Yep.
Those size drivers. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful passenger engine. And picture this thing pulling a passenger train. Bright yellow coaches.
I like that it says built October 1852, worn out 1867.
Yeah, yeah. Worn out May 1870. Yeah. Yeah, Caruthers made some remarkable notes on these things.
Yes,
Those must be sister engines over there in the lower left.
that's right.
Yeah,
The,
other PRR engines of this type,
yeah.
two of them,
Mhm.
the Eagle and the Atlanta.
Atalanta.
Atalanta.
The
Yeah,
treasure trove.
I actually one of my own drawings was of the Atalanta, but
Huh.
I certainly didn't paint it red. I made a guess as to what the thing would have looked like.
Looks like it's got a walnut cab.
Yep.
But old Caruthers became a railroad journalist in the 1890s. From the 1890s through the 1910s, he wrote a lot of articles in old magazines like Railroad Gazette, Locomotive Engineer, a lot of those old publications that you can still find online. But of course, all those were black and white drawings in those. They didn't have any color reproductions. But you notice up here, look at the number on the top here, 327. He literally did hundreds of these drawings. And the only thing that I can think of is that he may have had a book of some sort in mind for all these drawings that he was making.
Hmm.
He just never got around to publishing.
Oh,
But you know, like I said, I'm just happy to find out that a lot of his color stuff survived.
Yes.
And here's another Baldwin. This is an old Baldwin from 1851. Had a Bury firebox, the domed firebox. This is before they invented the wagon top boiler. And here again, you see the tender with the pedestal journals.
Yeah.
Everything rigid.
What is
Along with along with the brake only on the front and the back.
Yep. Yeah. Well, those brakes were only to keep the locomotive from rolling when it was parked. You know, when it was just left alone. Back then, you never put on the engine brakes while the engine was moving. That just wasn't done. It wouldn't have held the engine anyway.
This is the first time I've actually noticed that the Bury boiler, as you call, actually went right through the whole locomotive. It went all the way down practically to the track. So this was one whole
boiler.
what is it?
Oh, no.
Yeah, it
Firebox.
was on the whole top of the firebox. You can see
Yeah.
the weird geometry of the pieces of iron that they put on it just to make a round dome fit onto actually this is a kind of a D-shaped firebox. It's rounded on the back edges, but it's straight on the front edges where the tube sheet meets the boiler.
Oh, okay.
But the problem with the Bury firebox, it did a lot of things that engineers liked. It had a lot of space at the top of the dome for dry steam, so you wouldn't get wet steam into the cylinders and pop your cylinder heads. But the geometry of putting together a boiler like this was just it was self-defeating. You get leaks there, you get breaks there. It just wasn't as sturdy as a cylindrical boiler or a boiler with a wagon top. There again, minimizing maintenance as best they could.
Right.
Well, one thing I've noticed on all these drawings is that it looks like the cleanout for the stack is pointed directly at the headlight, not to the side.
Yep. But remember that the headlights were just sitting on there. They were pretty much removable.
Right.
So it could have been that the cleanouts were there instead of on the side. But I don't know. I don't know,
Yeah.
not having been there. Whether he was just following the conventions of the locomotive lithographs and moving it around to the front, or if it was actually there when he sketched the locomotive when he was a teenager. It's hard to tell.
Mm.
But I wouldn't let the presence of the lantern, that wouldn't have stopped anybody. They would have just lifted the lantern off and gone about their business.
Right.
In fact, a lot of engineers owned their own lanterns
Oh, no kidding.
with them. At the end of the day, you'd haul off your lantern and put it on your next locomotive, whatever locomotive you were assigned to.
Did they own their own whistles too, John, or is that a fixed feature on the locomotive?
As far as I know, that's a fixed feature. I've never
Okay.
heard of anybody swapping out whistles.
Got it.
Didn't they usually have an assigned engine at this time?
Some did, depended on the railroad. But yeah, you're right. There were a lot of engineers that just had their own engines. They were responsible for it. They had their own crews. They were responsible for, choosing which crew members to have on their crews. And that would have included roundhouse crews as well as firemen and so forth.
Wow.
It just it was a different way of working back then. On the one hand, there was all the exploitation of labor that you read about in the 1800s, but on the other hand, workers back then did have a lot of agency. They could decide for themselves a lot of things that we would consider managerial prerogatives these days.
Right.
Yeah, and here's the last one. Here's another, it's another bald one. You can't get rid of the come on. Let's nix out the dotted lines there. Come on, there we go. Yeah, Armstrong. I like this one for the lettering.
Yeah.
I think I'll swipe it next batch of details I make for you guys.
I like that.
I like the 3 axles on the tender. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's again something to think about. When you build your own locomotives from that era.
Yeah.
This guy has a black walnut cab, and you can tell from all the texture that put on it. It was just varnished black walnut, no paint on it.
I love it. That's,
But
you know
anyway,
what?
Go ahead.
I was going to say that's I'm just imagining painting that on one of the cabs to give it that look. That's really nice.
Yep.
Like walnut.
Now this engine is interesting. It's got a Lowy chain brake. You see this black circle here behind the rear driver. That's
Yep.
actually a driving. That's actually a wheel. And you see a chain coming off of it.
Yep.
And it goes to a link here, and that goes on past the. It would be attached by chains to the brakes on the following, say, half dozen cars.
Oh.
Oh,
This was a mechanical predecessor to the air brake.
I'll be dang.
What you did was you had a lever inside the cab that controlled the position of this wheel. And whenever you wanted to apply train brakes, in other words, real brakes when your train is moving, pull the lever, that wheel swings up against the rear driver, and that spins the wheel, turns the wheel, and pulls the chain taut. And that would pull the brakes on those subsequent half dozen cars at the front of the train. And hopefully that would slow you down. That was something that I've only seen on Pennsylvania Railroad engines, all of them from Civil War times. So, you know, I don't know if any other railroads used it or not.
So this collector has a lot more of these drawings. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, unfortunately, he's been reluctant to send me any more.
Oh,
Believe me, I've asked.
oh,
But you know, he's very protective of his collection. He thinks it's valuable, and I don't blame him. But you know, there's a lot of railroad memorabilia like that.
Yeah, that's too bad. It's not like we want to like steal them. We just want to see them.
Yep,
Uh,
that's kind of, believe me, Tom. I've tried every polite trick that I know of.
right.
You know, just flat explain to them why I want to see them. I'm making a study of how locomotives were painted back then.
Right.
We've got a very important collection. Who knows? He may get back to me.
Yeah. Yeah. At least you got.
it's frustrating when collectors are so they don't want to share this wealth of historical information.
Yeah.
That's something that I know that when I was in graduate school, there were a lot of graduate students like that, but it's just like, no, if you come across good information, share it. Oh man.
But
I
the good.
appreciate you sharing this with us. And if it's at all relevant, you can thank the gentleman or lady who provided you with this information from us.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, you know what I've been doing. I mean, you know, I've come across this so much. You know what I do is I just have been redrawing these locomotives, or you know, locomotives like this as I find the information.
Mhm.
9 Burlow
Right.
River.
What?
Well, the
Yeah,
good news is he's released these to you at least. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
back like within
And then
48
you can let him know that,
hours, you know.
like DC said, you know, even if it's just an email or something, let him know how much it was appreciated by our group to have access to seeing what these beauties look like.
Yeah, well, you know what I think, Tom, it'd probably be the best thing diplomatically to just not bring it up.
Oh,
I had to share it with you guys, but you know,
let the sleeping dog lie.
yeah, just
Yep.
let it sit, let it sit and marinate for a little while.
Good. I think that, yeah, that's good. That's good. It's like you got a fish on the hook. Let it, you know, just play it out a little bit.
Yep. In the
How is
meantime, you guys can take away what you can from these. The big lesson for me is that there were a lot of locomotives apparently that had those monocolor color schemes. That was kind of a revelation for me. If you want to paint your locomotives all red, hey, you saw the prototypes. You know, if you want to paint them all green, there you go. You know, wheels too.
Mhm.
You know, we tend to think of drivers being red all the time, but you know, look at that collection. Just a few locomotives, and we saw different color drivers.
Yeah.
So you know, it's we still have a lot to learn. All of us do.
Yeah. And that's, you know, that's one of the many things that I enjoy about this period is there's less definitive boundaries, which gives you lots of room to be creative with how you build and paint your models. It's just one of the fabulous things. I was listening to um, a little lecture on the Great Locomotive Chase on a side note, and this is a question I had. the one of the raiders said when they got into the cab, that big shanty, they cut the bell line that was run on the tops of the passenger cars.
Mhm.
And I was like, wait a minute. Was there So that meant that the passenger car had a line, as you said, on the top of the car. So would that have been for a conductor, somebody to pull the line and ring the bell that would tell the conductor, the engineer to stop or something?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, they normally ran them along the ceiling inside the passenger cars. You know, I don't know what the Western Atlantic did, but you know, other railroads did that. That was pretty common.
The passenger car at Pennsylvania State Railroad Museum has the bell cord. So, and those photos I think are posted on our site. It shows that cord coming out.
Hmm.
Yeah, you can see the cords on a lot of the old photographs of locomotives.
Wow. I'm just thinking of running a train that is like on a prototypical narration to rig some kind of temporary line from the locomotive, and it would go from the inside of the cab over the tender.
Over the tender, you'd have the thing that I've seen, Tom, is you had I don't know what else to call it, just a stick up on the back of the tender. The cord ran from the cab to that stick, and whatever kind of a roller they had on the top there, and then over the linking pin to the car.
Wow, that's I love that. That's that's very good. That's very good. Jeez,
That'd
that's
be a
cool.
neat detail if you want to put together a train and just have it all the time set up.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. I love
Now
it.
was there any of that gentleman's I guess teenage years drawings survive, or just only the redrawn ones that he did?
Oh yeah, there's lots and lots of his black and white drawings. He wrote over 100 articles in the railroad magazines at that time, and he illustrated a lot of them with black and white drawings. In fact, if you go to practically any book on early locomotives, you'll find one or another of his black and white line drawings. They're just
Caruthers.
really common. Sorry,
It's Caruthers.
Caruthers. C.H. Caruthers. That's
C.H.
how he wrote his Charles Caruthers, but C.H. Caruthers was how he was known.
Would White have used any of his in his books?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
White would have been familiar with that, you know.
but the originals, as far as you know, the only one that has any of the originals would be the gentleman that provided the ones we saw to you, right?
Well, he only has a portion of it. I
Hmm.
pointed out that number at the top of the page. Best I can tell, Caruthers made, I don't know, maybe 400, 500 drawings.
Wow.
The one number was 450. I noticed that because after you
This
pointed out the
gentleman only
numbers.
has a small fraction of those.
Right. And do you have any idea where those others are? Are they in like a library? No idea.
No idea. I'd love to find out. That was the last thing I put, that article I wrote for Railroad History magazine. Yeah, that was the last thing I wrote in the article. If anybody has any knowledge of where these drawings are, please get a hold of me. And 3 years later, this guy did.
Wow.
He read my
Okay.
article and said, "Hey, I've got something to show you." He sent me an email.
That's great.
Wow.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, you never know. That's why the more we can, whether it's an article or photographs or whatnot, and get them out there, it's funny how, somebody, I mean, like you say, 3 years went by after you did that article. And who knows, there's probably people out there that don't even know we exist, and have a little bit of a treasure trove of some cool stuff. Love it.
Yeah. Keeps me getting up in the morning, you know. Never know what the day's gonna bring.
I know. Yes, yes. Good.
All right, I have a question on what is the I'm trying to think what it's called, but I want to say like lost packages or lost cars. You know, it's like, you know, how common was that? Because I mean, it's like we're so used to it in this day and age. You know, usually when you put something through the mail, there's like a 99% chance that it actually gets there. What was the percentage back then?
Of people getting mail that was sent to them?
Yeah.
I have no, I would not a clue. I would think it would have been relatively good. It just might take a while, but
You know, there were a lot fewer people back then, so maybe it was easier to find people.
yeah.
You hear about packages being sent to small towns with nothing but the name of the guy it
Yeah.
was supposed to go to. And the guy at the post office would know everybody in town and hoof it over to give it to him.
Right.
Yeah,
Or they'd stop by the post office next time they were in town.
yeah. Who knows? Maybe it was easier to get packages.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you gotta think back then they didn't have zip codes.
God.
There was also I think in Pennsylvania, I think there's two Springfields. So it's one of those things of which Springfield, you know, which city of Springfield do you send it to?
Well, speaking of lost things and found things, I was reading an article about the end of the war. The B&O Railroad went on a search for all of their lost equipment, and was the Lady Davis one of the engines that they found and repatriated, or to their
Yes, it was.
yeah.
Captain Thom Sharp of the Confederate Army swiped 14 engines, and they found all 14 after the war, but only 12 were in good enough condition to bring back. But the Lady Davis was one of them. Brought it back, gave it the old B&O number again, 188. They actually have a photograph of it in the 1870s. I put that on in the Facebook article. And I think the thing lasted until the 1890s. Lasted in service.
Yeah, Sharp led the search for him. He knew where they were at. So he went and got them for the B&O because he was working for him by that time.
Yep. You know, old Garrett, the president of the B&O, you know, he knew a good man when he came to rob him, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, must have been a Yankee.
No, Garrett was a Southerner.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense too then, I guess.
All the B&O, you know, they're all Marylanders, and most of them were Southern sympathizers.
Well, it's all south of the Mason-Dixon line.
Yep.
That's what Dave's book really brought to light, was that the B&O Railroad was Garrett had to think money. He wasn't thinking loyalties at that point. He had to make sure that the B&O survived somehow. And the only way it was going to survive, since it was in the grip of the Union, was side with the Union.
Yeah. Well, he made the mistake of trying to stay neutral. You know, and that worked like a $3 watch. He had both sides demanding that he end his service to the other side.
Right.
And when he didn't answer them in the affirmative, both sides rushed in to grab whatever they could.
Right. That's cool. All right. Okay, gentlemen. Ready to go. Thank you so much, John. That was super. I really
Yeah,
it
appreciate you
was.
sharing that. Man, that's a unique piece. Wow, that was great.
That was
I'll
terrific.
be watching this recording again.
yeah, just to see the locomotive.
LeBron, I'm sorry, you said something?
I just agree.
Got it. Okay, good. All right, guys. I think Chris Gerlach is going to be up sometime in December. He sent me an email. He was hoping to have something this month, but they're still working on building some models for their virtual. So we can look forward to seeing what they've accomplished. It's been almost a year. So I'll keep you posted on that. And in the meantime, y'all be well, keep on building, and see you next time.
Night all.
Very nice. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Night.